Good morning, everyone. Mayor Jane Castor here. I have the honor of standing in for County Commissioner Kimberly Overman, who chairs the Hillsborough County Tourist Development Council. We are going to call the quarterly meeting in session right now. And I would like for everyone, does anyone have any questions on the previous month's meetings? Any concerns at all? All right, hearing none, we will not vote because we are not in person. But if anything comes up associated with the meetings, please be sure to bring that up. Do we have any public comment?
No, ma'am, no one's registered.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on. Ron Barton, if we could have the administrative report.
Thank you. And Glenn, if you could just pull up the financial report. And by the way, just by way of introductions, we have Jane Fagan from the county's attorney's office. She's joining us this morning. Wanted to make sure we introduce Jane, and she has varied experience, but one of the most relevant is she staffed the TDC in Pasco County as well in the past. So she brings TDC background and knowledge. And I believe she even had some interface with Joe Collier in the past.
Right.
Thank
Jane,
you, Ron.
thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Be happy to be available to you.
Okay, Glenn, is that screen maxed?
Stand by.
Thank you. My tired, poor eyes can't see that version.
You're good to go.
Okay, if you could move forward to the first slide. So I'm going to go through the quarterly financials. This is a first quarter, so it's a fairly perfunctory report because we just have the first 3 quarters. You know, the biggest thing of note, and you'll see this in both my comments about revenue collection as well as Santiago's comments, we're already exceeding budget related to revenues. And so you'll see that reflected. Under the 3 cent, we have our contractual obligations, and most of those are pro rata payments. So the marketing costs associated with Visit Tampa Bay, the out of area marketing, the Tampa Bay Sports Commission, and towards the end, you'll see, in fact, Plant City Sports Complex. Again, by way of introduction, I've asked Jack Holland from Plant City to be with us a little later and to give us an update on their project now that it's picking up some steam as well. I thought it'd be helpful to get some background there. So the other items are all pro rata payments, or in the case of the TSA, payments for the sports complex. Those are made up front. If you could move to the next slide. And we also have the 6 cent, and so you see the revenue collections, and there are three contractual obligations charged against the 6 cent. And the first is the percentage marketing allocation to Visit Tampa Bay. That's actually in the middle. And again, that's a pro rata payment. At the top is the contract that we have with the city of Tampa for capital improvements to the convention center, which you've seen presentations on that over the course of the last couple of meetings. That's not unusual. Typically, the bulk of that billing comes towards the end of each fiscal year as they move forward with phases of the project. So you'll see that come into play a little later in our quarterly reports. And then the third is the cultural facilities grants. And you may recall that we hit the pause button during COVID. All the potential applicants for that were cooperative with us, but we've picked it back up now. And we have moved 3 contracts through the board for approval. And this next meeting we'll have, actually the meeting after, we'll have 4 more. So those will be those contracts will be in place, and those are our major cultural and tourism entities. And basically, these are smaller capital projects. They're not meant to be significant major expansions, but they do fit the needs of many of our venues in doing either one-year projects, or we allowed up to 3-year projects with a max of 1.5 million. So they're smaller capital projects, but needed by the venues. So that's a report on the 6th cent. If you could move to the next slide. I won't stay long on this one. This is the full collections of the 6th cent. The yellow highlighted box is the year that we initiated the 6th cent. All previous years were 5. That's why we don't do the percentages on here, but you can see the total collections. Of note is the continuing phenomenon that even in a pandemic, you know, our collections are basically exceeding best years ever. And so that's the full 6th cent. If you could go to the next slide. This is a chart of just the 3 cent. And we've showed you this before. These are the previous years. And you can see the different pandemic years versus the 2019, which was the last, I'll call it, normal year. And then the beginning of our 2022 charting. So we'll follow that along graphically. It's an interesting comparison over the last 4 years that we've been watching. If you could, go to the next slide. This happens to be the 6th cent. And so it shows the percentage change. It's the same whether it's the 3 cent or the 6 cent on the percent change to prior year. So you'll see the, you know, again, those are strong percentages, but they're comparing to a month that was still a pandemic collection month. And but we just started adding the 6 cent because we've got enough historical data to go ahead and start showing you the collections of that data. If you could go to the next slide. And this is the 3 cent. And so again, you can see the collections over. Yes?
I'm sorry, it's I just wanted to, actually, this one is the 1 to 6. The first one was 1 to 3.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, but this is 1 to 6.
Yeah, thanks. It's hard for me to read on the screen, I have to admit. So anyway, this is the full 6 cents, so you can see the collections. My bad, my apology. So go to the next slide. I think that's it for the financial reports.
Mr. Barton, this is the last slide on the presentation.
Yep. Okay. So, Madam Chair, just if there are any questions either about the financial performance or the collections data, and I know Santiago also provides additional context to the revenue collection as he goes through his report, but I'm available if you have any questions.
All right, are there any questions or comments? All right, my only comment is thank you, the appreciation that I wasn't the only one that couldn't read that screen. The downfall of age, without a doubt. And next, our amazing CEO of the Tampa Bay Convention and Visitors Bureau, Santiago Corrada, for the quarterly activity report.
Thank you, Mayor. It's great to be with you, especially when I can keep the theme going that Mr. Barton started with just some phenomenal numbers that are the envy of a lot of other parts of the country. And I know we have some great GMs here that know of other parts of the country and how some of the other properties are managing throughout the recovery of the pandemic. So if we could put up the presentation, I'd like to jump past that one to the first slide that has numbers. You saw the quarterly report that shows October, November, December. December, which is the last month that we have full data from Smith Travel Research, Inc., shows exactly how Hillsborough County is performing, how the state of Florida is performing, and how the U.S. is performing. And that December occupancy number is one of the highest in the country. In fact, Smith Travel Research does an entire year's worth of analysis on how busy destinations were during that calendar year. And we have repeat champs around here. We call ourselves Tampa Bay. Well, I have to tell you, the tourism industry is on a repeat run of its own, because in 2020, Tampa St. Pete were named the busiest travel destinations of the country in the top 25 markets. And right now in 21 that we just completed, we were named again repeat champs of all top 25 markets, the busiest travel destinations in the country. And that occupancy number for Hillsborough County is one of the highest, if not the highest, of all of those markets. So again, a great December. January, which we don't have complete numbers for, just took up where December left off. So occupancy in the 70s, February's in the 73% range. So we expect January and February to also, if February continues the way February is looking, and January, of course, is done, we will have, some other great charts to show here in future presentations. If we go on to the next slide, please. We're looking at occupancy year over year for Q1. These are actual numbers, Smith Travel Research Inc. numbers for October, November, December, the average for those 3 months. And you see there that, yes, it's still a slightly bit off of first quarter 20, which was still not a pandemic 20. And we can account for that because we have almost 3,000 more hotel rooms on inventory that we're filling. So you take 3,000 hotels off of that 68.9%, and we're doing really, really well compared to prior years. But when you go on to the next slide and you look at the show me the money slides, your average daily rates, comparatively speaking, are much better than we saw in Q1 of all the previous fiscal years. If you look at the next slide, which is revenue per available room, and again, just for those that are interested, that's when you take up our almost 26,000 hotel rooms in Hillsborough County, divided by revenue. If every one of those rooms was being occupied, we'd be bringing in over $87, which is, again, our highest over the last 4 fiscal year Q1s. So again, doing very, very good fiscal year 22. Next slide, please. And revenue. Again, show me the money. So this is revenue according to Smith Travel Research. This is for, again, October, November, December actuals according to their numbers. And you can see how that shows against a fiscal year 19 Q1 record and actually a fiscal year 20 record. You see where it's tracking right now. So again, very, very good numbers being shown by Smith Travel Research Inc. Next slide, please. We look at our Hillsborough County performance for those 3 months. Again, actual October, November, December numbers, very, very respectable. You see over 21 over that first quarter. And that first quarter, we were starting to come back. So these numbers are impressive because we were already starting to come back in the first quarter of 21. Our pandemic recovery was a lot quicker and a lot stronger than in other places because we all work so very, very well together to start drawing visitors here. If you look at the next slide, you're looking at the submarket downtown for Q1. And that's a nice number there to see as far as revenue and occupancy, one of the best we've seen in a long time for the downtown market as conventions, groups, and business travel starts coming back to the market, starting to show some real movement there. If we look at the next slide, I believe that would be our East County, which includes East Tampa, but over there by the fairgrounds off to Brandon. Really respectable numbers, and quite honestly, as I've said in prior meetings, the business mix that those hotels see out there is a little bit different than what we would see in downtown Tampa. So again, very, very strong numbers. The next slide will show North Tampa Bush. Again, love those arrows going in the right direction, right? We had some presentations where they were those arrows weren't so straight forward shooting up, but all of these arrows are good to talk about. And then the last slide is our West Shore district. And again, nice to see those numbers. And again, this is the average number for those 3 months that are our Q1. Next slide. If we go on to the next slide, we're talking about the taxable revenue. Now, these are kind of the numbers that Ron represented. they are Q1, which are October, November, December, but really collections in the hotels for September, October, November. They lag a month. So when I was talking about Smith Travel Research, those were actuals October, November, December. These are in a month in arrear. And you see there again for our first quarter, and we always compare quarters the same way. You see taxable revenue very, very good compared to a record fiscal year 20. Next slide is a different representation. What I like about this, and well, I like it and I don't like it, is you see where the bottom fell out in that black line. But then you start seeing the blue line picking up right after May of that bad month, and you see where that yellow line continues. So again, really good progress there. If we go to the next slide, we're talking about bed tax collections, which Ron has already mentioned, all 6%. And you see for that quarter, which are collections September, October, November, that represent October, November, December, you see how well this quarter is performing against prior quarters. Next slide. And again, just another visual representation of what those lines are doing and what they did. And hopefully soon we'll not show the black line anymore because it's depressing and I don't like it. So maybe the black line will be erased out on future presentations. Next slide. So on sales, if we could move on, very productive Q1 for our convention sales team. In fact, we're starting to see repeat business that we picked up during the pandemic because other folks couldn't host them. So these are some nice events that we're picking up for future years that were picked up in this quarter, September, October, November, December, for future years with some nice bang there. And like I said, I believe we picked up some of these during the pandemic. The next slide shows where we're marketing. And we have our most aggressive marketing campaign focused on conventions, meetings, and business travel. So if you're picking up any of these publications that meeting planners, event planners, conventioneers look at, we're in all of them. Their page ads, their digital ads, their videos. So we have, since the pandemic, been very, very aggressive in drawing back meetings, groups, conventions, because we know the impact they have in West Shore and downtown Tampa. So full bore ahead on all those. Next slide. And this is some of the creative you might see. Again, always a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and including those individuals that might have some limitations as far as physical accommodations. So again, great creative that's showing up in a lot of those publications that cater to meetings, conventions, and groups. Next slide. The multicultural end, we hosted Connect Marketplace during the pandemic. Should have been in Puerto Rico, and as a result of hosting Connect Marketplace, Sherry Brown, our VP of Multicultural Business Development, has brought in women of color in pharma for this March. So very, very excited with that group coming to town, a group that's never been to Tampa. So again, picking up a lot of business during the pandemic that we want to come back and return and be with us for years going forward. Next slide. I believe this is a video, and let me set this up. This is someone who is considering Tampa to have an event, and we found out he loved fishing, and we have a good friend who has a great fishing show. So I'll just leave it at that and show you the video.
I mean, that's a hog.
That's
trout.
a good sized trout.
Great day in the morning, that's a big trout.
Only in Tampa Bay.
That's the condensed version of that show. He had himself quite a good time, and we believe he's going to sign a contract soon. So we're super excited about that. On the marketing and PR side, the next video, I'll set it up. You know, many, many years ago, we started marketing our food scene. And in fact, we had a culinary cookbook that was also a travel book called Tampa's Table. And we've updated the food video, and then we'll tell you how that has created some return on our investment. Roll the video, please.
A great dish is like a great song. It has melody, it has kind of a refrain, whether it's the sauce or the garnish, that salty, sweet, savory, bitter, that rounds your palate. But it's also about texture and composition. And then you have the culture. But it all should be seamless and be in concert together.
Food in culture is really like a centerpiece, transcends everything. That's not something you can buy off a shelf.
We write a dish, something cool, funky, art forward, no pretentiousness. The challenge for us is, how do you always push yourself to offer what you've created, which is something that's not mundane?
I just appreciate what we've built. This doesn't just happen overnight. Looking around, seeing what other restaurants are doing. Everyone's found their spot, everyone's doing their thing. I'm putting Tampa on the map.
Our chili has venison, wild boar, duck, alligator, ground chuck, and cranberry beans. They're all native to Florida. We want to stay here. We want to see what Tampa becomes, because she's growing up. She's becoming bigger and better, and she's going to continue to do the same thing.
Cuban sandwich is Tampa. The Spanish bean soup was Tampa. How do you be original and bringing back history? That's the fun part. And I'm excited about what tomorrow holds.
15 years ago, you had to have chicken on the menu. Now you're actually seeing chefs in Tampa do their food, doing their dishes. And over the last, couple of years, people, I think, are really starting to take pride in it and not afraid to speak about it. We got some pretty serious restaurants and some pretty serious cooks in Tampa.
I'd whet your appetite there before lunch, right? About an hour, you can go find one of these cool restaurants and have one of those cool dishes. Next slide, please. And I think because we jumped out so many years ago talking about this evolution of the culinary scene, we caught the eye. We think we caught the eye of the Michelin Guide. And so Michelin is currently conducting what they do in town. And hopefully we'll have some great announcements soon of either Michelin star rated restaurants or Michelin Guide restaurants. And again, just to put it in perspective, only being done right now in Tampa, Orlando, Miami, and outside of Florida, only in California, Chicago, and New York. So we'll be with some great company here very, very shortly. So again, very, very proud of that. Next slide, please. So we've got some campaigns that are going on. This is the results for October through December, where we use third party and we can get very specific data to the hotel, actually, data. And, something that I want to point out here is that, in the past, maybe OTAs and third parties, people were critical, but the ADR, the average daily rates that we're seeing of $182 are very competitive with some of those ADRs I showed in those earlier slides through Smith Travel Research, and over $19 million in hotel revenue booked, over 104,000 booked room nights. So again, campaign's doing very well. The metrics very supportive of what we do and the return on the investment. Next slide, please. And this is some of the creative that you might see on some of those platforms. Again, we can follow you from the moment you open that up, click on it, all the way to you go to put your credit card down or your PayPal or your Apple Pay and book a room and where it's been booked. So we know what it's producing. So again, just a great way to follow the money and really good for us to demonstrate strong performance. Next slide, please. Some great new guides, one in German, one in Spanish, one in Portuguese that you don't see there. And of course, our Visit Tampa Gay guide that we do in collaboration with Creative Loafing. So those are out right now. Pretty soon we'll be releasing our new Destination Visitors Guide, and all of these are digitally offered as well as in hard copy. And you know, some folks still like something in their hands, so we still do some hard copy ones. We'll be a little bit old school, but all offered digitally. Next slide, please. And then we've done 3 books. We did Tampa's Table. We did Tampa with a Twist that focused on, you know, our bartenders and cocktails that make Tampa famous. And our last book, which is a hardcover coffee table book, is a photographic journey through Florida's #1 destination, and that's Tampa Bay. And so if you like that, that's a great gift. In fact, they're going pretty fast out of our visitor center, and we're very proud of our 3rd tour book, actually, Visitor's Guide, that's done in a very creative and informative way. Before I open it up to any questions, update on Tallahassee and the legislature. There are 3 bills that have been filed, both in the House and in the Senate. One is a good bill, very good bill, because it extends the life of Visit Florida, which is good. They need stability, anywhere from 3 to 8 years. We believe it'll probably be about 5 years, which is good because we do a lot of marketing co-ops with Visit Florida, and they're a great, great partner. 2 other bills, one out of Orlando, the Orlando area, that looks at the expansion of the tourism development tax to include infrastructure. And as you know, there's a lot of theme park activity in Orlando that requires infrastructure. So it's a way to look at using tourism development tax dollars to fund some of that infrastructure. And then we have another bill coming out of the Panhandle that looks at expanding the uses for lifeguards. And if some of you remember a few years ago, some counties in the Panhandle already can do that. This is expanding the uses for coastal communities throughout Florida for lifeguards, and to raise the allowed percentage from 20 to 30% of the tourism development tax to be used to fund lifeguards. So one of the tourism development tax bills has gone to one of the House committees. It's scheduled for 4 committees, so it has a ways to go. Hasn't been heard in the Senate. The other one hasn't been heard at all. And the Visit Florida ones are moving quite nicely through both the House and the Senate. So that concludes my report. If there are any questions, Mr. Barton or Madam Chair, I can certainly take those.
Any questions, comments? Well, I think the fishing video shows that Santiago and his team will go to any length to bring business to the community, which is absolutely wonderful. I've seen everybody in action. You guys do an amazing job. And unfortunately now, Santiago, you've caused everyone at noon. We're all going to take the rest of the day off and go to those restaurants. I think I was salivating on that. Numbers just shows what an amazing region we live in, and how fortunate we are to have such a great team working here in Tampa. So very, very exciting. All right, no questions, no comments. We will move on to Assistant City Manager Jack Holland for an update on the Plant City Sports Complex.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to step in and give you a brief update on the tournament management facility at Ellis Methvin Park. And when the slideshow comes up, we will move forward. Right, on the next slide, it gives a refresher to you as to the location of the facility within our Ellis Methvin Park. And this will help better support our tournament so that we coordinate through Tampa Bay Sports Commission and our own local efforts. On the next slide, we'll give you some elevations of what the building will look like. These are the north and the east elevations. And on the next slide, we'll give you the other 2 sides as well. And the next slide will give you the look at the floor plan with restrooms on one corner, concession area on the bottom corner, a little small referee management area on the bottom left corner. And the next slide will show the upstairs portion, which is a tournament management facility. We will have our data ports up there that can hook into the internet, and also an overview being the second floor. They can see over the entire complex and monitor what's going on with their event. On the next slide, we'll give you a bit of a timeline of where we're at. We are at 100% design work. It's due actually next week. We got a 1-week delay on that, so it'll be here next week. Our guaranteed maximum price should be expected in early March. Once that goes to commission for approval, and make sure our funding is all in place everywhere for it. We have 2 concurrent projects going along with this process, and that will go hopefully to construction in May of 22. We anticipate 11-month construction, so that should finish us up with substantial completion in April of 23. Of course, we are at the mercy of the supply chain issues at this point, but our contractors feel that the 11-month window will be sufficient to get everything completed. And the final slide just gives us the, again, our thank you to the TDC for support. We're working together to mutually benefit our youth sports partners and our adult sports partners that use this complex and bring more sports and more people into Hillsborough County. So we're proud to be a part of the effort. And with that, I conclude, and I'm here for questions.
All right. Anybody have questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Jack. That is a huge tourist and revenue generator with those sports events. So thank you for the update. Outstanding facility. General discussion. Anybody have anything to bring up for the good of the order? Everybody's ready to go out to one of those restaurants. Again, just Santiago's tab. Just tell them Santiago sent you. All right.
Perfect.
Thank you, Commissioner Overman, for allowing me to step in for you. And we will see you all week. Or see you next quarter. You guys all have a wonderful weekend. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.